Hi, welcome to the Israel First television program with myself, Martin Blackham, with my wife, Nathalie Blackham. Great to have you with us. Thank you so much for joining us today live from our studios in Jerusalem. The Israel First television program looks at the news. We look at what's happening in Israel, and we give you all the latest information. So thank you for joining us today. We are live, so if you'd like to send your comments or communicate with us, you can do that. If you're watching the YouTube show, you can do it by the live chat button. If you're watching at a later date, you can also contact us. Just email us at info@israelfirst.org. Now,
I'm doing the chat on the YouTube.
Natalie,
so if you want to speak, I'm doing the chat.
Natalie will communicate with you via the chat button if you want to talk to us live on air. And we do appreciate, and this is very important, we do appreciate your comments and we take them very seriously. So thank you so much for communicating with us. One of the amazing things, Natalie, is that we are, as a nation, the country of Israel, is in this situation where we are under pressure with the vaccinations. We're under pressure with the situation with the virus. We're under pressure with Purim, and Purim is coming up, and you've got something to tell people about Purim, Natalie, I believe. You've got got a special book for Purim, so I'm sure that people would love to hear about that, and that's going to give you all the information.
Now, the Purim story is amazing, very special, because it's like telling there was the annihilation again of the Jewish people, and Esther, the queen, helped all the Jews to be saved, and it's a beautiful story. And during Purim we read it. It's called the Megillah of Esther, and we've got this one, which is from the israelbible.com, and you can purchase it, from israelbible.com. And this is very special because it was, do you remember a few weeks ago, or 1 or 2 months ago now, Esther Horgan, to make sure that I say, sometimes I think Morgan, but it's not, it's Horgan. She was from France, and she made Aliyah a few years ago, and she was murdered by a terrorist. She was just running in the forest where she was living in Samaria, a terrible murder, and she was 52 only. She was full of life. She has 6 children. She has 2 grandchildren. She was an artist. She was also doing a lot of things, also therapy for family. And so the Bible Israel, Tuli Weiss, which is the director, the CEO, said, okay, we need to do something. And so with the husband of Esther, they've done this beautiful, very special Megillah Esther, and is Esther Horgan, who's done all the illustration in it. I'm going to show you. It's really, really beautiful. Okay. And so, for Purim, we read the Megillah in the morning and in the evening. And it's very beautiful, and it's very special because we are more and more Christians who really want to speak more about the Jewishness of the Bible, and learning there every time when you read it through the books, the chapters, you have some commentaries. And so the explic is very good, Martha. I look at all the commentaries already, and very, very good, very smart, giving you a lot of background so you can learn more of the, having really insight of the story of Esther, that we can apply also for our life, because it's very important. And this speaks so obviously about the importance of the Hebrew language.
What's the Megillah, by the way, if people are wondering?
Because it was like a scroll. So it was like this, like in the synagogues, it will be rolled, it will be a scroll, and it will be written on one piece.
And it's the story of Esther from the Bible.
That's it.
Is that right?
Yeah. And so it's not because, they have to to unroll the scroll when they are reading it, so it will have a whole one. There is a lot of stories about that. There is also some people who are trying to put it in a special way because it's written Amelech, the king, inside. So some people, is written in a different way, and when it's the Amelech scroll of this is called the Megillah Esther, okay? But when it's written in a very special way, because you have to know, in the story of Purim, there is not once the name of Adonai, of the Lord, inside. And it's really to show that he's the one who is in the midst of all the events, but sometimes he hides his way behind because he wants to leave us the freedom, which is very interesting because it's exactly the story of Purim, that you give some freedom. Our God has always been giving us some freedom to choose to follow
And that's
him.
exactly what we're going to be covering in the news today, because this is the situation in Israel, is that freedom seems to be going out the window. By the way, Natalie, if you need to tell our lovely viewers how to get hold of it, because...
Okay, so I said it again. Is in Israel. Let me look again to make sure that I say it properly. The IsraelBible.com. Okay, and
which is the website.
And I forgot to tell you, okay, you have beautiful illustration by her, but all the money will come, especially from this Megillah, will go to Tal Menasseh, where Esther was living, and they are doing a memorial park, and they will plant trees over there. So all the money will go for that.
Wow,
which is very special.
Which is an amazing project for you to get involved in, and we'll put underneath the video the link. If you're watching live, you can send us comments on the YouTube. If you're watching at a later date, you can always email us at info@israelfirst.org, and we will send you all the details.
And I want to say again, this is very special because it's like we read it for Purim. But if people want even to have the Bible, it's called the Israel Bible, again with some amazing commentary at the bottom. And again, you go onto Israel, the IsraelBible.com, and you can purchase it over there. Is very, very good.
And it's interesting because Purim is all about the fight of the Jewish people for freedom, and for Purim, exactly that. There is a curfew being introduced, Natalie, for Purim, that the freedom has gone out the window. Israel police released details on how they will enforce the Purim curfew restrictions, including they've sent a map of the checkpoints has been published to be the checkpoints which will be set up across the country. In accordance with the regulations and restrictions that will take effect from today, Thursday, in preparation for the Purim holiday, the police will significantly increase the supervision and enforcement activities throughout the country, and will work to enforce the regulations and restrictions for the protection of public health. And it's because of coronavirus COVID-19 that they're setting up this curfew. Starting this evening and during the weekend, traffic police officers will deploy 24 checkpoints nationwide, which will operate from 8 p.m. in the evening until morning hours every day. So in other words, if you're traveling in Israel after 8 o'clock, then you better be very careful and have a reason why you're traveling. The police say the activity of the checkpoints will be carried out on the interurban arteries leading to cities. There's a whole kind of map of barriers that they're setting up between urban and interurban areas in order to assist in carrying out the purpose of the regulations and maintaining public peace. Alongside the checkpoints, hundreds of police officers and vehicles will be operating during the curfew hours, conducting searches on all the artillery roads around the country, while establishing blockades to locate civilians who do not act in accordance with the regulations. So we are in a situation as a country where there's a national curfew situation coming into force.
Just 1 minute. Hi, Wolfgang. A friend from Norway coming to look, so it's wonderful.
Yeah, great to have you with us. Israel is stepping up the pressure on citizens to be vaccinated. Again, we're coming back to Purim and the freedom of people being taken away with the Green Passport program. A Green Passport will be required to enter certain places and to participate in certain activities. Only people who have been vaccinated or have recovered from coronavirus will be eligible for this Green Passport. As part of the program, registered gyms, theatres, hotels, concerts and synagogues will be able to operate starting next week. Health Minister Yuli Edelstein added that soon there will be places of work that will have to, listen to this, will have to, it's not a choice or option, require their staff to be vaccinated or else undergo a coronavirus test every 48 hours. Talking about forged certificates, the Health Minister said anyone who prints a certificate, even though he has not been vaccinated, will be eventually caught, and this activity could end in a jail term. Now, this is very interesting about this forged certificate because Israelis are very inventive, Natalie. They're very good at circumventing. They've had to be. They've re-established the country from nothing. They've had to be creative in solving situations with terrorism and all sorts of different issues. They've had to work around sometimes and corruption and bribery and whatever. And we're bearing in mind Israel is in the Middle East, so there's all these different pressures on people, and they've had to work around them. So what they're saying is that this is not something you can work around and expect to not have consequences. Health Minister, Director General Shezvi Levy said he held a meeting with senior police officers on Thursday about enforcement and uncompromising punishment against the issuers of forged green passports, the users and the forgers. More activities and establishments are expected to open under the same model in the coming weeks. And this is, Edelstein said, you should get vaccinated now, upping the pressure on people to receive the vaccinations. And in accordance with this theme of having to have a green passport, Israel is reopening gyms, hotels, halls only to those who've been vaccinated. From Sunday, gyms, hotels, halls, libraries and museums can open. However, clientele have to have the green passport, a certificate that can only be obtained once a person has been vaccinated. The Green Passport, which is contained in a mobile phone app, is issued by the Health Ministry and will be valid for 6 months, which is a strange thing. Why? It's only valid for 6 months, 1 week after the second dose. Israel's Ministry of Health said that during the launch period for the issuance of the Green Badge, it will be possible to use your existing vaccination certificate. Tens of thousands of people have already received the Green Badge in addition to vaccination certificates. A person who visits a place that operates under the badge without having been vaccinated, listen to this, will be fined 1,000 shekels. Prime Minister Netanyahu says he expects 95% of Israelis over 50 to be vaccinated over the next 2 weeks. So there's this pressure keeps upping, and it's like the thumb is coming down. Now, Israel is surprisingly doing more and more things to up the pressure. And one of the dramatic announcements that was just yesterday, as we've come into the studio today.
Yesterday
night is United Hatzalah, which is a national emergency organization, in a dramatic announcement said it has decided to suspend all unvaccinated volunteers in an extremely controversial move.
And especially Hatzalah is using a lot of volunteers because it's not, do you understand? It's like, because they want to respond so quickly to the urgency, they have a lot of people who are working for them, so they have a lot of volunteers.
Yeah, and I think we have one on our road from memory. But anyway, in an extremely controversial move, United Hatzalah founder and president Eli Beer has instructed the heads of all regions in Israel, both secular and religious, to make sure that all the volunteers under their jurisdiction have received the vaccine or are recovering patients by the 7th of March. So there's not even very many days to sort all of this out. Should a volunteer decide that he's not happy to receive the vaccine or he's not sure about the vaccine, he will be immediately suspended from all duties. And after a grace period, will be even removed from the organization. You will not allowed to, you'll be cast out of the United Hatzalah. To date, nearly 90% of the 6,000 plus volunteers who make up the organization have received the first vaccine. According to the new policy, those who have a legitimate medical reason why they will not receive it, such as pregnant women in their first trimester will need to submit a request to the medical department of the organisation. And even then, it's not guaranteed that they'll be able to stay, but they will be able to submit a request. So again, the pressure keeps coming. Now here again, the Israeli Prime Minister pushes Benjamin Netanyahu for legislation to disclose, now listen to this, names of unvaccinated Israelis to the local authorities. The idea has raised serious concerns over privacy violation, and that legislation's just gone through, I understand. The legislation will allow the local authority to receive data on those who've not been vaccinated yet. Health Minister Yuli Edelstein and Interior Minister Aryeh Deri informed the Prime Minister that the number of Israelis aged 50 and over that had not been vaccinated was not 350,000 but was 570,000. This is still a very high number and we need to vaccinate them immediately, Netanyahu said. The Cabinet tasked the Health and Justice Ministries with the proposals with the legislation. Mordecai Kremenitzer, a researcher at the Israeli Democracy Institute, expressed concern that the Prime Minister's legislation will be used as a way of pressurizing people to get vaccinated and may lead to a violation of privacy. Well, of course it's going to lead to a violation of privacy because they're giving everybody's details out. Amir from the Israeli Democracy Institute also said you can't put a person in a position where he has to choose whether to get medical treatment or become a criminal offender. The Netanyahu government has assumed strong emergency power during the pandemic, and this proposal follows other contentious issues such as the internal spy agency of Israel using phone tracking technology to identify possible virus carriers. And what we've said, is that and we're not at all speaking to you if you've had the vaccine. We're not at all putting you under pressure or saying you've done something wrong. What we're saying is that there should be the freedom to choose either way, and that once you've made that decision, you should be free to follow through with that decision. And that's the issue. And this two-strung society where there's the vaccinated and unvaccinated, and suddenly becomes like two levels of society. Now, Israel Air, the airline, this is the budget airline. Many of you will know El Al, which is the national airline, which, by the way, is not able to have many flights whatsoever. I think it's just got one, the emergency flights, which they're doing. Ben Gurion is closed still as we've come into the studio. Israel Air has announced flights to operate for the vaccinated only. Listen to that. In other words, you can't get on it if you have not been vaccinated. Budget Air passenger carrier Israel Air announced new discounted flights to and from the southern city of Eilat, only for those who've been vaccinated. Israel Air said that it would begin a pilot run of flights to Eilat, which are open only to those who've been vaccinated against coronavirus. Israel Hayom News reported, in light of the reopening of Eilat's hotels under the Green Badge plan, Israel Air announced that it would operate the new flights only for those who've been vaccinated. Beginning this week, one flight a day will be added, serving vacationers arriving in Eilat and Eilat residents. Passengers on these flights will be required to affirm at the time of the booking that they hold the green passport. They will be required to present their green passport to staff prior to boarding the plane. On these flights, the air staff will wear stickers reading, "I also got vaccinated." The green flights can be booked via Israel Air's website. Now, again, we're not saying, if you've decided to have the vaccination, that's your personal decision. What we're saying is that suddenly you can't board the Israel Air flight because you've not got the right this green passport. And what is very important for you to know, I know many of you are interested in what's happening in Israel, interested in news from Israel. Something which is not being reported is that Israelis are protesting against vaccination coercion and the enforcing of this green passport. Demonstrators have gathered in Tel Aviv, Natalie, just last night, Wednesday, to protest against forced vaccination, and the Green Passport program, which permits only vaccinated persons to take part in certain activities. Among the speakers at the rally, which drew a crowd of the hundreds, were lawyer Oren Pasternak, the main organizer of the event, and Tamir Hefatz, the founder of Higion Habara, Common Sense Model in English. Ari Avni, founder of the Rafah Only Health Party, was also present, as were some of the party's candidates. Speakers and protesters called for the end of tyranny. The protesters demanded that the government cancel the Green Passport initiative, which they say leads to a two-tier system. I mean, that's exactly what it's leading to. We have those who've been vaccinated and those haven't. And if you're in the...
And the government is having some more power, more and more. Now, when you speak about Ari Avni, this doctor, the one who started the new party, which is called Rafah. Rafah comes from Rofeh, is like health, because he can see that something really needed to be done. He's a doctor. And now his license have been revoked for 6 months by the Ministry of Health.
Wow.
Because of what he's saying. So it's happening in Israel.
It's a very dangerous situation because once you start, I mean, there's a lot of things happening at the same time, but there's surveillance, there's the use of this Green Passport, there's the vaccination program, there's giving the information to local authorities, and the protesters have demanded the government cancel this Green Passport initiative, which they say, as we were mentioning, leads to a two-tier system within Israeli society, a privileged vaccination class and a lower class of those who can't get the vaccine or would prefer not to. One large sign held by members of the crowd read apartheid in English and Hebrew in bold next to a green passport. Another large sign equated green passports with the tattooed arms, this is very shocking, of Auschwitz-Birkenau prisoners. One speaker invoked the memory of his great aunt, saying that she was killed by exactly the same people who are today placing restrictions on movement. They are saying people are tired of medical oppression. And Nathalie and I just watched the Holocaust film just this week, and they're terrible to watch, but what was so shocking was that the beginning of it was, well, gosh, this is happening now. You know, that the Jews, okay, it's not targeted now at Jewish people, it's targeted at everybody. But there was a distinction in society, and Jewish people couldn't buy and sell. There started to be difficulties to have businesses. There started to be difficulties to go to school. There started to be difficulties with books, reading Jewish books, etc. And many of you know about all these different issues. But what is shocking is now there starts to be again this differential in society, and it's certainly very concerning. And not many people are talking about it. Nathalie.
I know. And there was also we heard also about the code, the Nuremberg Code, which was something that happened during the trial of Nuremberg, because they knew that things was done which was not right during the Third Reich. And so one of the things was like, you shouldn't be restrained. No, you should have still the freedom all the time that if there was some medical experiments, is you have to give your consent. You shouldn't be pushed in a corner and to say, yes, I have to do it because you have so much pressure. So this was part, it's not a law, but it was a code to show really, specifically that there was things who were like out of order. But you know what? We're out of order for a lot of things already. Mm-hmm. So it's quite important to know all these things, because the media is not always saying all these things. You have to do some research to be able to find these things.
I want to come on to that. I want to just mention that there's a huge movement in the world media against saying anything that contradicts against these vaccine. Nobody who says anything against it can be heard. Earlier this month, Facebook announced that it had removed a major Israeli group. Now, it wasn't from America, it was from Israel, that had issued warnings about the vaccine and the vaccination program. Facebook said the group had allegedly and without any proof violated its community standards. The group had 12,000 members and featured information about the dangers of the vaccine and the vaccination program. Just days later after Facebook had done that, the social media giant deleted another group associated with popular Israeli Rabbi Amnon Yitzhak, who was also issuing warnings about the immunization campaign. And even our Facebook has disappeared. And so if you would like to have news from Israel, you can go to the website and go onto the media button, News from Israel. But you can also, and this would really help us, if you subscribe to our gab.com account, our new media account, where we're putting news on a regular basis.
Mm-hmm.
We are,
and we do also like a newsletter every week. Again, you can go on our website, israelfirst.org, and you can contact us, and you can ask for the newsletter. And we do also a book. I don't have my book here, but it's like the beauty of the Hebrew language, because it's so important in the middle of where we are. We need to do some positive things, and speaking about the Hebrew language and learning about it is very important, because it's part of the new era where we are going to enter.
And if you would like to contact us and let us know what's happening in your area, then please do. We'll be very interested to know. The interesting you can do that, by the way, as I mentioned.
Volgan was telling us, by the way, he said, yes, I know that the EU is against the green passport, but Norway have been started to talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the countries will be doing exactly the same thing. The interesting thing is that Israel is first, hence the name Israel First of the program. And we've been called the guinea pig. You know, they are literally trying out this vaccination campaign. And we have been, as a nation, have become the guinea pig for this whole thing. Well, great to be with you today. We've run out of time. We're sorry to tell you. If you'd like to contact us, then please email us at info@israelfirst.org. You can also contact us via the website, which is www.israelfirst.org. And remember, we're the program that looks at the land, the people, and the language.